Crews continue cleanup efforts after devastating floods damaged parts of Buchanan County, Virginia. And an internal watchdog reports Secret Service members deleted text messages from January 5th and 6th, 2021. January 6th committee members want to know what could have been in those messages.
And higher rain chances return as we get into this weekend. I have those details coming up as Mountain News First at 4 continues.
Mountain News First at 4 continues.
The waters may have receded, but the work remains as volunteers and crews fill the Buchanan County, Virginia communities devastated by flooding earlier this week. With homes destroyed, roads washed out, and people displaced, volunteer groups, churches, and outreaches from all across Virginia are stepping in to offer what they can. From food and fellowship to cleaning supplies and comfort, those working around the Oakwood area say it's all about getting their neighbors back on their feet.
I like being a person that shakes a person's hand, hugs a person, and says, hey, I can't rebuild your home, but here's a case of water. Here is some cleaning supplies. I want you to know that we love you.
With several outreaches meeting people where they are and many organizations taking in and giving out donations, community members say it is nice to see the kindness when it is needed most. Plenty of people are taking advantage of emergency shelter as they come to terms with losing everything from this disaster. Amy Cockerham spoke to a family who's in that exact scenario, but just grateful they survived.
Rafters, we stood up on the furniture and wrapped our arms around the rafters and held on.
A gaping hole in the ceiling, that's where Fleming and his wife clung for dear life as water filled their home.
Right in here, so in places. Once the house started moving off the foundation, I told my wife, I said, we're going to die. I didn't know. I said, we're going to lose our life right here. And we started praying and praying and praying.
Fleming's wife says she felt a hand pull her back from being swept away. And although she knew it was her husband's, she felt it was God's.
You got to keep climbing just like I am. Just go higher no matter how high you got to go.
Fleming says he's seen what these kinds of floods can do before. He's a volunteer firefighter who helped clean up the Hurley floods last year.
It was devastating there, and I know what they went through now. I pray for them and pray for the whole community here.
But even though it was Fleming's home that was struck this time, through it all, he keeps his faith. Just behind Fleming, you can see one of his only possessions left untouched by the flood, a hummingbird feeder, still full of liquid and busier than ever.
The Lord saved our life, and material things we can get back, but you can't get a life back.
And thankfully, the weather is much quieter across the mountains as we round out this work week, but we do have another round of showers and storms that we are watching out for, especially into your Sunday and Monday. But this evening, all is quiet. Here is a live look over at I-64 in Moorhead. Plenty of sunshine and blue sky, and same story over in Whitesburg. Current temperature sitting at 85 degrees, but check out the dew point, 54. Dew points in the middle 50s across the mountains, and it feels much better as you step out the door. Middle to upper 80s, 87 in Manchester, 86 in Somerset, 85 for London and Jackson. And like I mentioned, dew points in the upper 50s and lower 60s, about 10 degrees cooler than we were about 2 days ago. So not as muggy as we get into this evening, and that is going to feel much nicer as you go out the door. Here is a look at Pinpoint Doppler. All is quiet as we go through the rest of this evening. We stay partly cloudy, temperatures falling into the upper 70s and lower 80s. Still a little bit mild, but not as bad as it has been over the past few days. Now we are watching out for some changes, especially towards the end of the weekend and towards the beginning of your next work week. I have that full forecast coming up in just a little bit. Steve.
All right, Cameron, thank you. The Secret Service is again in the crosshairs of the Congressional Committee looking into the Capitol Hill riot. An internal watchdog says the agency that protects the president deleted messages from January 5th and 6th of last year. CBS's Bradley Blackburn reports from New York.
The head of the House January 6th committee is vowing to investigate what he called the extraordinarily troubling destruction of Secret Service records. A letter has been obtained by CBS News from the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General to a pair of congressional committees. It said that many Secret Service agents' text messages from January 5th and 6th, 2021 were erased as part of a device replacement program. What's more, the Inspector General says the texts were deleted after his investigators asked for them. A spokesman for the Secret Service denied any wrongdoing. Special Agent in Charge Steve Kopech said some data was lost when the cell phones were reset during a scheduled system migration. Kopech also pushed back on the timing of the IG's request for electronic communications. He said the agency wasn't told to provide the records until February 26th, more than 7 weeks after the riot. The Secret Service's activities had already drawn the scrutiny of the January 6th committee. Last month, a former White House aide testified she was told President Trump had an altercation with an agent who refused to take him to the Capitol.
The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel."
The agents involved denied those claims, and according to the Associated Press, the driver and a member of Trump's security detail are willing to refute the story under oath. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Secret Service spokesman Anthony Guglielmi's statement on those text messages, in addition to denying they were deleted maliciously, said, quote, "The Secret Service has been fully cooperating with the OIG in every respect, whether it be interviews, documents, emails, or texts." The Select Committee, meantime, met on Capitol Hill yesterday to, among other things, weigh whether to call the former president and vice president to testify. Depositions of former President Donald Trump and 2 of his adult children have been temporarily delayed due to the deaths of the children's mother, Ivana Trump. It's all part of the New York Attorney General's civil investigation into the Trump Organization. Trump, Donald Trump Jr., and Ivanka Trump were all set to be deposed next week after having lost several court battles trying to avoid the depositions. But a spokesperson for the New York Attorney General's office said today, quote, "In light of the passing of Ivana Trump Thursday, the Attorney General agreed to the family's request to reschedule the depositions." The AG's office said the depositions will be rescheduled as soon as possible. Today, prosecutors said former Trump White House trade advisor Peter Navarro turned down a plea offer to plead guilty to one of the 2 contempt of Congress charges he faces. The charges are for not participating in the House's investigation of the January 6th siege on the U.S. Capitol. Had Navarro complied with the Select Committee, prosecutors said he would have received a maximum of 30 days in jail. A lawyer for Navarro said no one in the same position as his client has ever been prosecuted for obeying a presidential directive. Navarro has also previously said he could not comply with the subpoena he received because he was protected by executive privilege. A trial for former Trump advisor Steve Bannon, who is facing similar charges, is expected to start next week. We are learning more about the unarmed man who was shot and killed in Akron, Ohio last month when 8 police officers opened fire on him after a high-speed chase. The results of Jalen Walker's second autopsy were released today, and the medical examiner says he was shot at so many times and had so many injuries, it's unclear whether a single bullet could have caused one injury or multiple injuries. They believe that, or they did find 26 bullets in his body, but they say he suffered 46 gunshot wound entrances or graze injuries. They say Walker tested negative for drugs and alcohol. The initial autopsy was done shortly after Walker's death, but another doctor did it again for quality control. All of the officers involved in the shooting have been put on paid administrative leave as the investigation continues. Today, the Top supermarket in Buffalo, New York, reopened to the public. The supermarket was the site of a mass shooting on May 14th that claimed the lives of 10 people and injured 3 others. Reactions were mixed as some applauded the decision as a show of strength, while others argued it was too soon and the reopening created a target for potential copycat shooters.
It is far too soon to be reopening these rooms. You know, this shouldn't even be called TOPS right now. It should be called Target, because we are now being targeted. We can be targeted again because it is the only store in this area, and that's what this whole thing started over. We lost 10 lives and 4 human beings are indelibly injured and traumatized, and the community is still mourning and grieving.
Prosecutors say 19-year-old Peyton Gendron targeted the 10 people he shot to death because they were black. He's now facing 14 hate crime charges.